Hi, Steve here. The globalists are all doing their assignments. They all have a job to do. If a man does some good works through philanthropy, should that excuse them of committing mass murder on a worldwide scale? You see, when you have billions of dollars, you can commit genocide in a way that no one can tie you directly to committing the crime. He never pulled a trigger. He never set off a bomb. He never knifed anyone or beat them brutally. No. But what he does through his science and those on his payroll is much, much worse. Bill Gates has more money than you or I would have in 100 lifetimes, or that we could accumulate as good working people. And what does he do with his money? He does evil. He can afford to pay for publicists, keeping his public image intact, while behind your back he continues to murder millions of people on this earth. He invested heavily into the pharmaceutical companies who produce the so-called COVID vax. He funds the genetically engineered mosquitoes that have been dumped all over the world. And he funds the geoengineered aerosol spray that is pumped out into our air on a daily basis. Do you know what the difference is between a billionaire like Bill Gates and an average common working man when they commit murder? The working man goes to prison, whereas Bill gets to fly all over the world, untouched, unprosecuted, and unindicted for his mass murder. And then we've got the deep state globalists who all have their function, and one of them is to flood America with illegal aliens.
They've been walking on this road. This road runs for 12 miles, 12 or 13 miles. What it does is it parallels our border fence. On the other side of it, on the Mexican side of it, is Mexican Highway 2. So the cartels have a really easy job. They just bring the people off of Highway 2 and then through the wall. The wall has many of those cuts that I told you about earlier, where they run the people through. And so the immigrants just walk down this road.
Right, so as you guys can probably see right here, that's a group of 5 migrants who just hopped the border, and they're walking directly into Border Patrol custody
to join the seated group of migrants that we just encountered.
So typically when you think of the border, at least me personally, I thought it was like people hop and then try to evade Border Patrol and make their way to a large US city to start a new life. But in this case, you can see they are putting themselves directly in the custody of Border Patrol to begin the asylum seeking process. Like they're not trying to evade or anything.
A Border Patrol agent agreed to speak with us but didn't want to go on camera. Normally, agents are not allowed to be interviewed, and all press requests are typically deferred to a public information officer who rarely ever responds. But in this instance, the agent seemed exhausted and eager to tell me what was going on.
No, there's very few of them evading.
How come?
Well, because they allowed them in. They don't evade because they'll let them come in. They load them in the vans, they take them up to Phoenix, give them a $3,000 gift card and a cell phone, and send them wherever they want to go. You get a court date. You have 2 years to show up in court. That's the reason they give them a phone, because they're saying if they don't give me a phone, I don't know when I'm supposed to go to court. So they give them a phone.
At first, I was confused what the Border Patrol agent meant when he kept referring to they. To the naked eye, it appears that Border Patrol is the one handling and processing the migrants, but they're only the first step in a chain of bureaucratic authority that goes up to the Department of Homeland Security, then finally up to the Department of Justice's Executive Office for Immigration Review, which is more or less controlled by the Biden administration, who've taken a much more open arms approach to immigration after pulling back Title 42 just about a year ago. But despite pushing for more lax border laws in comparison with President Trump,
the wall just got 10 feet taller, believe me.
Biden hasn't done anything to make the process of applying for citizenship any faster. In fact, it still takes between 18 to 24 months to get a response on a citizenship application. And it's actually possible to be denied citizenship if you fail to memorize and regurgitate fun facts about the history of America.
How many amendments does the Constitution have?
It has 27 amendments.
Good. Which group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves?
Africans.
Good. Excellent.
So it makes sense why a lot of migrants, many of whom are facing desperate circumstances, avoid the citizenship application process altogether, driven by the paranoia of a white minority.
An analysis of census data from the Brookings Institute projects the number of white Americans will fall below 50% for the first time ever in about 20 years, 2045.
Or perhaps it's less about race and more about the burden of inheriting global poverty, when we have so many problems of our own. I guess times have changed a lot too.
Fewer immigrants coming from Central America and from Mexico. This is a totally different circumstance. What's on my watch now is Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. And the ability to send them back to those states is not rational.
Hola, otra vez estamos aquí en el Centro de Inmigración, aquí en San Antonio. Estamos con Roybal, que viene de Venezuela. Y Roybal, primeramente, ¿cuánto te tardaste en el viaje?
Aproximadamente 27 días.
27 días.
Vengo de Venezuela, vengo de Lima, de Perú.
¿Vienes de Perú? Sí. ¿Pero eres venezolano?
Claro, venezolano.
Vienes de Perú, pero eres venezolano. Sí. Oyes, entonces, ¿y cómo fue el Dariel y México? ¿Cómo fueron?
Bueno, el Dariel fue una travesía que yo nunca había esperado afrontar. O sea, fue una experiencia muy diferente a la que uno ya está acostumbrado a vivir. El monte, los ríos, más que todo eso, pues el pantano, es algo como una supervivencia, es una prueba de todo, como quien dice. Pero México ya es otra cosa también, pues, es muy distinto. Migración de México es un poquito más fuerte, más complicado. Todo.
Hemos oído que los policías son bien...
Sí, en vez de apoyar a uno, lo que hacen es maltratar a la persona, hacen es que uno le quite las ganas de seguir adelante, pero ya uno viene con la fe en Dios y uno sigue.
¿Y qué tal la cruzada del río? ¿Cómo estuvo eso?
Yo no crucé por el río.
¿Dónde?
Yo pasé por Ciudad Juárez.
¿Por Ciudad Juárez?
Sí, por allá.
¿Y fue más, pudiste cruzar?
Fue un poco más tranquilo. Okay. Del hecho de que no tuve que cruzar río, sino fue cuestiones de minutos, pues pasé. Como 2 minutos duré para poder pasar y ya estuve en Estados Unidos.
¿Y cuánto tiempo ya llevas aquí en San Antonio?
Ya aquí tengo casi aproximadamente 14 días.
14 días. ¿Y a dónde vas?
Yo no tengo destino.
No tienes destino, estás...
El destino lo sabes yo, a donde sea. Y ahorita estoy aquí por lo menos esperando un trabajo.
Buscando trabajo.
Fijo, claro.
Ahora, tocante a tener un boleto o algo así, pues como no tienes dinero, pues tienes que buscar manera para comprar.
Claro, tengo que buscar la manera. Pues, y la manera es buscando un trabajo estable y poder tener la estabilidad que uno busca pues, aquí en Estados Unidos.
¿Y dónde duermes? ¿Dónde te quedas?
A veces me quedo así aquí en la calle o en el hotel, como sea. Cuando hay para pagar hotel, uno se queda en hotel. Cuando no, uno se queda en la calle. Pues.
¿Qué hacías allá en Venezuela o en Perú? ¿Qué hacías?
En Venezuela yo era militar.
¿Cómo?
Soy militar en Venezuela.
¿Militar?
Sí, de la Fuerza Armada de Nicolás Maduro.
Ajá. Y hemos oído también que, bueno, las cosas están malas económicamente, pero ¿qué tal el crimen y la violencia en Venezuela?
Bueno, económicamente no sé, porque yo tengo desde el 2018 que salí de Venezuela y cuando salí sí estaba un poquito fuerte la cuestión por problemas políticos con el régimen de Maduro. Por eso fue una de las cosas que yo también salí de Venezuela. O sea, de hecho yo no puedo entrar a Venezuela por el motivo de que soy desertor, o sea, de traición a la patria, me pusieron todas esas cosas. Y delincuencia, como todo país, siempre hay delincuencia en cualquier país, pero en Venezuela es un poquito más fuerte. No sé ahorita cómo estará, pero sí sé mucho la delincuencia.
¿Había crimen?
Bastante. Extorsiones, secuestros, robo, hurto, más que todo con esa banda así, las bandas delictivas que existen allá en Venezuela, todo eso.
¿Y te sientes a gusto aquí más o menos ahorita?
Gracias a Dios, sí. Muy diferente a lo que ya hemos pasado. Lo que he pasado pues en tanto tiempo que he salido de Venezuela es muy
Aquí los policías te tratan bien.
Sí, no son así como en otros países, ¿sí me entiendes? Entonces, más tranquilo.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Roy.
Ya, muchas gracias.
Mayorkas says, we will not call them that. We will call them non-citizens. Does it matter if I call a pile of cow manure, or I call it a pile of It's still cow crap. Changing the words doesn't change anything of reality. So what do you think all these poor souls will do when they have nothing and the government stops giving them money and they're offered a job to be a soldier?
How did Rome fall? Historians have been debating that question, well, moving on 2,000 years now. But everyone agrees one of the reasons is pretty obvious. The Roman military, its legions, became dominated by non-citizens who, in the end, because they weren't loyal to Rome, turned against Rome's citizens. So knowing that as we do, consider this series of facts. This country has been flooded with tens of millions of illegal aliens. At least 7.2 million, that's the official number, have entered since Joe Biden became president. That number is greater than the population of 32 states. So what do we do with these people? Do we deport them? No, not according to the U.S. Congress. Here's the idea.
There is no higher honor than serving your country in uniform.
And that honor could be extended to migrants under a new bill introduced by Hudson Valley Congressman Pat Ryan. Called the Courage to Serve Act, this bill would offer qualified and vetted migrants an expedited path to citizenship if they serve in the military. According to Ryan, last year the military services collectively missed recruiting goals by roughly 41,000 recruits, leaving some crucial positions unfilled.
If there are folks with the courage to raise their right hand, take an oath to protect and defend our Constitution, and put their lives on the line for this country, then they sure as hell deserve the opportunity to be citizens in the United States of America.
Ooh, Pat Ryan lecturing us on what it means to be an American, as if he would know. But consider this for a second. The military can't meet its recruiting goals. Now, who forms the basis of our fighting forces? Well, sorry to say it, but white men always have. So the U.S. military has been attacking white men by name. We're against you, white men. And so it turns out lots of white men don't want to join the military anymore. Who could have predicted that? So there is a problem getting American citizens who are born here to defend their country. Now, in a normal nation, you would pause and ask, what are we doing wrong that young Americans don't want to defend their own country? Maybe we should change and improve. But not in this country, not with this Congress. The idea is, let's allow an invasion of the country, not use the military to stop it, and then populate the military with the people who are invading the country and hope for the best. Wow. If this ever does become a police state, if you're ever ordered to obey at the point of a gun, this is the way it's going to happen. Maybe not. Colonel Douglas Macgregor seemed like a man to ask about this. He's a former senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense, the commander of the last tank battle in American history, and the CEO of Our Country, Our Choice. He joins us now. Doug, thanks so much for coming on. Now, I don't want to jump to a lot of conclusions about this, but since you are, in addition to all the other things I mentioned, a military historian, assess, if you would, the wisdom of allowing people to invade your country and then handing them automatic weapons.
You know, when I listen to the comments coming out of the Senate or the House, let alone the White House, I'm sometimes reminded of that famous statement in Vietnam, in order to save the village, we had to destroy it.
Yes.
I get the impression that's the plan in Washington. We have to destroy the country in order to save it.
Clearly.
At least, I guess, from the standpoint of everybody in Washington, whatever happened before they arrived was wrong, and the brave new world must be built in the future on the ruins of the past. And they're doing a pretty good job of trying to make that work. The military is a good example of it. And military institutions take decades to build. They're resilient in most cases because of the human capital that replenishes them on a routine basis. We're having problems recruiting for a very simple reason. People that have been through this over the last 20, 30 years have said, what are we doing? What's the point of being in the military? We go to these places, they look around in Iraq or they look around in Afghanistan and they say, there's nothing here. What am I doing here? Oh, well, you're building democracy. And people burst out laughing. It's nonsense. Of course it's nonsense. How is this defending America? And I think that's a huge part of the problem. If you were to ask 100,000 men, white, black, or otherwise, who call themselves Americans, what are you ready to do? They're ready to defend the United States. But they don't see much evidence that we're defending the United States. If anything, we've walked away from that in favor of what? Defending Ukraine or defending parts of the Middle East? This is not what we signed up for. And I think that's a huge issue as well.
I wonder, though, what the effect on our domestic politics, our domestic life will be. I mean, when you're at West Point, I imagine you saw your job as a newly minted Army officer defending the United States from its enemies abroad. But the DOD is playing, I think, an unprecedented role in the domestic life of our country. You saw it on January 6th. You see it in the censorship efforts being led by DOD. So should we be a little nervous about the idea of arming foreigners, lawbreakers, people who've broken federal law, and handing them weapons? Like, why would we be crazy to worry that that might be used against us?
Well, if you were playing for the Eagles and suddenly you were fired and the manager of the Eagles decided to hire the third string team that works in Dallas, Texas for the Dallas Cowboys, then you went into the game and discovered that the third stringers from the Dallas Cowboys are helping the Dallas Cowboys win, you'd be pretty upset. Well, that's effectively what these people are deciding to do. None of these people are Americans. We know from having interviewed them, they have no aspiration to be Americans. What they aspire to is to get into the consumption machine, get the ticket of entry, the free check, the free phone, the free transportation tickets, the free food, the free medical care, and the free this, the free that. That's why they're coming. And people say, well, they deserve this. No, they don't. They haven't worked for any of it. In the meantime, what do Americans get? You know, we have a force right now that can't defend anything anywhere overseas very successfully. Look at the failed military operations we've had for over 20 years, and look at the border. No one brings it up. No one's even trying. No one seems to care. You know, I think the largest problem is that Washington is this ideological bubble, and everyone decides that anyone who doesn't agree with them, that the world has to be refashioned in some new image that exists only in their minds, and that anybody who disagrees with them is by definition a criminal and has to be treated as such. What better solution than finding people who have no connection to the American people, arming them, and then sending them out to oppress us? Sounds like a great solution.
For many of these young men leaving the country they came from, this is what they were already doing. The people in America have been lied to about everything for so long, they don't know how to believe the truth, because all they've ever heard are lies from those who want you to believe only what they say. We won't have elections. Do you realize right now, as you watch this video, that we're 8 months away from even the possibility of an election? The globalists understand because they've said it. This is their opportunity to destroy all and to build back according to their wishes. They know that they will not have another window of opportunity. So what America's going to see, and even the rest of the world as 2024 goes on, will be stunning and shocking developments. Most of the things that have already happened, nobody even questions, and few people even say why or how could this have happened. We've been in a boiling pot for so long, most people are too tired to even try to crawl out now. I leave a link in the description box below that will take you to a prayer that will help you to receive the salvation through Jesus Christ that we all need. If you're not sure what to pray or how to pray to ask Christ into your life, that page, link below, will take you right to a prayer that will help you to pray, a very simple prayer, to receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and your Savior. Don't wait another second. Do it today. Do it now.